We thank you so much for watching Law School Made Easy at Law School Made Easy 256. I want to look at constitutional history today. I have done before a video of Wild Committee, but I have decided to now do the Musta. But Wild and Musta put them in one video so that there is some bit of continuity. You watch it at once. And the best thing is to watch it from the start to the end, because it is chronological. You must appreciate every step that is in it. Then also we shall repeat the Lancaster and the Marlborough conferences in one video such that you appreciate them. Now, it was a British norm that in every country where they colonized, where they were, they would have the commissions make a report on how the country would be left, because they intended to give back the country to its people. So by so doing, they would have a committee led by one of their own to spearhead the organization of the country. As they leave your country, they hand over the power to the right people with the right framework. One constitutional framework and relationship of any protectorate where they were. Now, in our case, a committee was formed in 1959, and that is the Wild Committee, which is also referred to as the Uganda Constitution Commission by John Bosco Wilde. He was the leader. It is named after Wilde, the leader of that committee. And then later in 1960, we have the Musta Committee, also known as the Uganda Relationship Commission by the Earl of Musta. The Musta coming from the head of it, who is called the Earl of Musta. Now, in the Wild Committee, their role was very simple. Their role was to set a framework that would stay behind as the British leave. And there is no doubt some of the constitutional provisions of framework that we have in this country were set at Wild. Among the things which were supposed to guide them was one. Remember in 1920, during the Order in Council, we had the formation of the Legislative Council. And the governor then appointed an Indian, Chalbai Amin, to be the first member of parliament. This, of course, angered, annoyed the Ugandans at the time. Now, to avoid such, the first role of the commission was to organize the election. How will the election be? In terms of the country, in terms of the members of parliament, to set the modalities, how we would carry out this election. Number two, the composition of the government. How is the composition of government going to be? That was their role. Number three, the issue of non-citizen, non-Africans. Remember, the British had invited the Indians to act as shock absorbers, that for them they feared to get the anger direct to them, so they brought the Indians in there. So when we are going to independence in 1959, one of the roles of the commission was one, to streamline the relationship between the Ugandans and the non-citizens, the non-Africans. In this case, the British and the Indians themselves. Then, that said and done, and also to check on the relationship of all people in the protectorate. Now, that said and done, the committee went ahead and looked at things which were not in their scope, that these were not agreed upon, but they went ahead and addressed the issue of elections of the president. And they said that we shall elect a president and will be the head of government. And the one who comes second, the one who loses with the majority, becomes the opposition. It is not a mistake that we have our setting today the way it is. NRM in power, that they emerged as victors, and then NUP with the leader of opposition, Joe Senyonyi, being the leading opposition because they became number 2. If you remember, previously, it was NRM on top and FDC, the leading opposition. Why? This was resolved at Wild Committee. Now, but of course, while the committee did not resolve, most of these things were rubber stamped at Lancaster, but the idea originated from there. Then they also agreed to create a council of ministers that would be running the affairs of the state. That some of them would come from the members of the Legico and then others. But they agreed that while others were appointed, these 3 should be appointed by the leader, by the president. In this case, at the time, by Her Majesty's government. One was the Chief Justice, the Attorney General. The other one was the Chief Minister. This is the equivalent of a Prime Minister. And then the other one was the Finance Minister. Now, if you look at these appointments being created, they all explain Article 108 of the Constitution, Article 111, Article 113 of the Constitution that talks about appointment of these ministers. It originated from Wild. Meaning that today, you have Article 119 of the Constitution, which talks about there shall be the Attorney General. This one came from the Wild Committee. They created the Attorney General, and it was the President or Her Majesty's government to appoint this person. If you look at Article 108A, that talks about the appointment of the Prime Minister, who at the time was a Chief Minister. This also came from the Wild Commission. Now, those are some of the things that they were set to do. And there is no doubt, most of these provisions were confirmed at Lancaster. So the present day today Uganda was formed at Wild Commission. Now, one issue erupted at Wild Committee. When all these were happening, the Baganda were not happy. And that explains why in 1960, there was a memorandum that was written by the Kabaka to the Queen of Buganda. The Baganda wanting to secede away from Buganda. That for them, their position, they were supposed to be the leaders. If they don't get what they want, they intended to break away from Uganda. They wrote the memorandum asking the Queen to allow them have an army of their own. That apart from Makerere College, the school here, all the other schools in Buganda were supposed to be under the control of Buganda. They are also saying that for us, we are supposed to be the leading institution or cultural institution. But what is disturbing the Baganda? If you have watched previous videos, what was disturbing the Baganda at the time was Article 6 of the Buganda Agreement and Article 3 of the Buganda Agreement. Article 6, which said that for as long as you are royal and submissive to Her Majesty's government, the Her Majesty's government would recognize you as the native ruler of your people. So the Baganda are saying, we have been royal and submissive to you. Why are you treating us like this? This explains why in 1958, the Baganda rejected the first elections we had. The elections where Ben Chiwanuka emerged as the chief minister. The Baganda boycotted. Then the other issue which arose in there that now takes us to the Musta Committee. That issue was the issue of direct elections. Baganda had wanted indirect elections. they wanted to go and pick on their people the way they wanted. Not to be elected directly, such that they would have the people who would champion the needs of the Baganda. But Ben Chiwanuka was saying this one would be denying people their right to vote. Let us have direct elections everywhere. Now, this takes us to the Musta Commission in 1960. After our framework has been formed at the World Committee, we now cross to the Musta Committee. In the Musta Committee, there is a reason why it was called the Uganda Relationship Commission. The reason is very simple, that the role of Musta, unlike Wild, was to set the relationship in the protectorate. That the Basoga, wherever they are, the Banyoro, wherever they are, the Baganda, wherever they are, the Langese, everywhere, are they in good terms with each other? The role of this commission was to organize the relationship that was available at the time. Now, the first thing this commission recommended was one, that before that, this commission was to be guided by 1 or 2, 3 principles. Number one, they were to be guided by the fact that Her Majesty's government was willing to give Uganda its independence. So in their dealings, they were supposed to acknowledge the fact that we were supposed to get independence. Number two, they were supposed to acknowledge the fact that there are reports which were made at the World Committee. Number three, they were supposed to put into consideration all the areas which had signed the agreement with the British. For example, the Toro, the Ankole, the Baganda, they're supposed to streamline the relationship. Now, in handling their work at Musta, the first thing they did was to recommend that Uganda shall have a central government headed by the president. This was the first resolution at Musta, that let there be a central government headed by the president and the prime minister, with all the powers to run the affairs of the country. In number two, they agreed that the relationship between Buganda and Uganda shall be a federal one. That the relationship between Uganda and Buganda shall be a federal one. So they gave Buganda its federal. And also, because the Chamazing of Busoga had attended, he also requested for the same for Busoga. And Busoga, Ankole, and other areas were given what we call the semi-federal. So we are entering into independence in 1962 when we have a central government. The relationship between Uganda and Buganda is a federal one. Buganda is given its federal. And also, another recommendation was that the president shall be in charge of the central government and the Kabaka shall be in charge of all the cultural issues of Buganda. Then another contradicting point they agreed at Musta was that the laws made for the governance of Uganda at large, if they affected Buganda, Buganda would be consulted. And it consult its Ruchiko before those laws are put into place. Now, at Musta, as you can see, the relationship of Buganda and Uganda was now set. And also they agreed that Buganda should not break away from the rest of Uganda. Because at the time, the British wanted to put Uganda together as one. So that is what happened at the Musta Commission. Now, at the Musta Commission, Buganda still contested the issue of the indirect elections. Sorry, of the direct elections, because Buganda wanted indirect elections. And Beni Chwanuka was so much against this relationship, these elections, because among the terms of the Musta Commission was that the elections shall be by adult suffrage, that people would be given their right to carry out elections. So Buganda found that Beni Chwanuka was a nani Buganda, that he was a Buganda who was against the Baganda, and he was looked at as the enemy. And the people of DP at the time supported the idea of direct elections. And it was from this time that DP died a natural death. Obote, having seen that Beni Chwanuka was against the election, Obote supported the idea of Buganda, which was indirect elections. And now at Musta, we see the beginning of the marriage of convenience, Kabaka Yeka, which is later cemented at the Lancaster conference. Of course, we shall discuss it at the Lancaster. We are going to redo the Lancaster and Marlborough in one video for us to be able to follow them. So we end Lancaster when we have a problem of Beni Chwanuka protesting against the Baganda, and Obote with his UPC supporting the ideas of the Kabaka, and we see the start of the formation of Kabaka Yeka Alliance. So we want to thank you so much for watching Law School Made Easy, but that is Wild and Musta Commission. So we thank you so much for watching Law School Made Easy at Law School Made Easy 256. Subscribe, share, like our videos, keep the comments coming. Thank you so much.